I got one negative bone to pick with him. The dude doesn't return texts. The dude doesn't return phone calls.
He doesn't text, I know that. He doesn't call, I know that.
Brian doesn't answer his phone when his sponsors call. If he don't have a problem, he don't want to talk to you. He's mowing the lawn.
Unless they've developed a lawnmower that receives text messages, Brian's not going to return your text because he doesn't even know where his phone is. Yeah, don't bother texting Brian. He's probably not going to text you back.
A day in the life, I usually mow the lawn. And that's pretty much it.
I met Brian Foster, I think, my first memories, I may have smoked him in a moto in the year or two before that, but nobody knew who he was. Everyone, all eyes were on me. As me being the world champion racer and the top dog in the class, like taking notice of Brian Foster. Seeing like, okay, this guy might be up to something. Brian was never a threat. When I was racing him, once I turned pro and he stayed in the amateur class a little bit, then he became a threat. He's just Brian Foster to me. He was never Gary Ellis. He was never Todd Corbett. He was never, Todd Blazer, Greg Hill. He was just always Brian Foster that, back in the day, I didn't even know him in my class. I used to wax him in the 13X or whatever.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Brian Foster was just some no-name 11 intermediate. I was waxing him. I didn't really know who this kid was because obviously he's behind me. And I don't have a rear view mirror on my helmet, so I never saw this kid until I was like maybe 18, 19, when I was waxing him in A-Pro, just spanking him. I'd look at the moto sheet and might as well have just been blank. I didn't see any of these guys. It wasn't until I was probably 22, 23 years old before I saw, the Blue Falcon in front of me. He's pretty good. I don't know what else to say about him.
So I got married about 1.5 years ago. I invited a lot of my friends, and I invited Brian Foster. And I was so psyched when I got his RSVP back saying he was coming. Him and his wife were going to come to my wedding. And I remember at certain moments during my wedding, this is the biggest day of my life, right? And I got my wife, and this is nothing to take away from you, honey. But I would look over at certain moments in the wedding, she'd be like, Brian Foster's at my wedding. And I would just kind of trip out for a second. So that's kind of funny. That's how much it means. On the biggest day of your life, you're psyched because I'm getting married, and Brian Foster's at my wedding. So I always thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, back in the mid-90s, remember the X Games didn't exist in '94. The X Games first came onto the scene in '95, and that same year, and I was living with Brian. We got a call from MTV execs. Hey, we want to do a special on BMX. We want to feature you two. And of course, Alan Foster. We want to do a story on BMX, but not just BMX, on the Foster brothers and Todd Lyons. And to come down here, with Brian and with Alan, and cameras up on a big scissor lift, and producers and guys holding microphones like this, and cameras this big, and wow, this is the real deal, And not just being here and being part of it and seeing it, and them interviewing Brian and and just talking about BMX. But then, holy cow, when that aired, MTV Sports just did a section on BMX dirt jumping, and featured, the Foster brothers and me, and it was just like, this is the big time.
So BF's living with TL, the wild man, and MTV Sports calls, and they were going to do a thing on the Foster brothers. So wild man answers the phone. Yeah, is Brian there? He's not here right now. I can take a message. Yeah, this is blah 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 from MTV Sports. MTV Sports? Yeah, what are you looking for Brian for? Oh, we're doing a piece on the Foster brothers. Yeah, well, I ride BMX. I'm a pro BMX rider too. Yeah, I'm Todd the Wild Man Lyons. Have you heard of me? They call for Brian to set up this gig to go down to Sheep Hills and film for MTV Sports, and the Wild Man intercept. So when it comes out, it's like the Foster brothers and Todd Lyons, which is completely random. I can imagine that phone call. Oh yeah, I'm the Wild Man. Yeah, you may have heard of me. I'm a 1987 double world champ. Pretty funny, the Wild Man is intercepting calls and picking up on the Blue Falcon scraps.
Evolution, evolving. Brian's evolved like no other rider in the history of the sport. Nobody's evolved. They're all kooks. They're all cavemen. I mean, Greg Hill is still staring at a penny. Harry Leary is still combing his bald spot. Nobody fucking evolves. Brian has evolved. When racing dried up, bam, freestyle. When freestyle got done, bam, street. When, you know, street's too easy to get broke off on, bam, superstar dirt guy. The guy rules. He kicks ass.
You know, and sure enough, to this day, who knows how many years later, you know, Brian's still on Schwinn.
That's right, you just cut
Yeah, Brian did some BMX Plus testing in the, I guess it would have been early 90s.
I think Brian got on like a cover ride in Auburn maybe, or something with a Pro Fork, or they'd put us in the BMX Plus outfits and with Axo leathers, and it kind of didn't make sense at the time. If we're getting paid by Hyper or TNT or whoever it was, but then going to ride this Auburn with Pro Forks and Axo gear, it didn't make sense, but we did it, and you didn't get paid for it. You just did it because, I don't know, you got that phone call, and that's just what you did.
That's a testament, I think, to Brian's ability. If you can get out there and ride those just hoopty ass bikes, and you can get out there and do what Brian was doing on them, you can ride anything.
At some point, I think you just reach that point where, like, you know, maybe I shouldn't be doing that anymore. But if you look back at it now, I mean, man, try to ask Mike Aiken to go ride some bike with a Pro Fork and a Axo. No way that stuff would happen, you know?
To me, and a lot of people that I know and respect, I'd rather see Brian do a table 3 more than any other trick anyone's gonna do. It's just absolute classic definition of BMX, and there's no one who can do that or replicate that. Whereas there are people who can replicate whatever the newest flippy trick is, you know, where you're so on those tricks, you're so concentrated on the doing of the numbers, you know, 2 tail-ups and a bar spin and a truck driver and a backflip. There's no room for concentrating on the form of it. And Brian's just classic form, and that's, I don't know, that's what I like to see in bike riding.
I don't think he has to fit in. I don't think fitting in matters to Brian. Doing what Brian does matters to Brian. Having some integrity, having some dedication to his scene, and that's probably enough. I'm glad to see that he's being rewarded for it, because there's too many douchebags that are doing the same shit as everybody else is doing and bitching because they don't get recognized for it. That's being a deck monkey. Nobody gives a shit about deck monkeys. Brian's an original.
I've been in this business for 25 years, and I mean, we've had a lot of riders. We've had more riders on our teams than Spinal Tap's had drummers. We've had a lot of guys come and go and come back. I mean, I think we've had guys on the team quit, come back multiple times. And through all these people and all these years, I can honestly say that Brian has been my favorite guy to work with the whole time, because there's zero drama with Brian. He doesn't get wrapped up in any kind of bullshit industry stuff. He tells you how it is. He doesn't waste your time. He doesn't text you at 2 in the morning or show up on your porch trying to get burrito money. He shows up. He doesn't miss flights. He doesn't complain about things. He's not a pain in the ass. He's not a prima donna. He's just an absolute dream team rider. I always hear people talking about, you know, what should I do to get sponsored? Well, what you should do is study Brian Foster and be exactly like Brian Foster. Ride your bike, get coverage, be a nice guy, don't bullshit people. I can safely say, if you can do half of what Brian's done, you're gonna be a successful pro rider. And like guys like me, you're gonna make our lives a whole hell of a lot easier. I wish we could clone him.
So the first time BF meets Homan, some terrible ABA race in Wichita, Kansas, Equestrian Center, 5 foot tall starting hill, soft dirt, 2 foot high berms, you know, just Brian's miserable. It's one of those races, actually mentions it quite a bit. He just showed up at the airport, hand lady's ticket, she's like, where are you going? He's like, I have no idea. She's like, oh, looks like Wichita. And he was just like, here. Get to Wichita, I rent the van, pick up Brian, and then I was like, this new kid, Van Homan's new dirt jumper kid. He's like, I think I heard of that kid. I don't know. So pick up Homan, never flown before, completely clueless, out of his mind. You know, he's 16, 17, just hyped and hyper. So he gets in the van, I'm driving, BF's in the passenger seat, homing, just like this, asking a million questions in Brian's face. Where'd you get this van? Whose van is this? It's a rental van. What do you mean a rental van? They just have it waiting here for you? Yeah, they're at the airport. Oh, that's insane. What is that lady? And he's like, looks at Brian, he's like, what's that lady, the waitress lady on the plane? What does she do until Sunday? And Brian's just like, just looking at him like, what are you talking about? He's like, the waitress lady on the plane. I was like, the stewardess? I was like, she doesn't just wait around in Wichita until Sunday, until you fly home. She's flying around, like to other places. And he was just like baffled. And he was just like a little puppy, and Brian was just glaring at me like, who is this kid and where did you find him?
Okay, describe my style of riding. I like to think that my style of riding is like an old, nice pair of shoes. They're just like classic, comfortable, not too many bells and whistles. Just nice.
I don't want to picture BMX without a Brian Foster around, because there's never going to be another BF. There's never going to be a Blue Falcon. There's not going to be the next guy coming up. So like, I don't want to picture it. When he decides to, step away, and whether that's 5 years or 5 months, like, I think he's always just going to leave behind that legacy of just kind of doing it the right way and doing it for the right reasons, and just having a pure love for being on a BMX bike. And I can honestly say that there'll never, ever be another Brian Foster. Not in my lifetime, anyways. I was like getting choked up for real. I was like, shit.
Well, it's like he's died or something, isn't it?
For real, like, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to picture BMX without BF.
If I'm receiving checks, I feel like I need to go to work a little bit. The kind of riding that I want to do, there's a barbecue going on. And it was the first curve wall I ever did. That was in the 80s. It seems like I make less and less every year.